people you call Black Americans are not from Africa.
Okay.
We're from America.
I mean, if that's how you want it.
First of all, I'm about to bust that dry bubble that y'all got thinking that everything and everybody comes from Africa. How can humanity come from Africa when all of Africa's food comes from the rest of the world? Your biggest cash crops, cocoa and cassava, both come from America.
I actually love that you brought that up because I can finally talk about Africa before slavery. Because yes, we did exist before slavery, and Africa, especially West African countries, had peaceful trade with South America at that time. That's why you can find cassava and stuff like that in cultural food in West African countries. Because West African countries discovered America way before Europe did, way before. And there's actually a really interesting interview from Dr. Even van Santima, which is from the 80s, I think. It's on YouTube, where he talks about how advantaged Africans were and their travels to South America, their trade and stuff like that, and how much Europe did to try cover that up because they were embarrassed about how advantaged Africans were. So thank you for bringing it up. That's actually, I appreciate that.
Check yourself.
Checked.
So y'all trying to claim that we come from y'all, when in actuality some of the people in Africa come from us. Y'all never heard about Liberia?
Okay, now I'm generally a little bit confused because even when we go off of your point of saying Black Americans are not Africans, Liberia would still exist as a country, maybe with a different name, without Black Americans, because it was never an empty piece of land. There were people living there before, and it actually caused a lot of difficult dynamics and even wars when they sent back Black Americans. So yeah, just saying that they would exist without Black Americans still.
Yeah. And y'all love to say that we ain't got no culture and we don't know who we are.
I totally agree on that because even I grew up learning that Americans have no culture. That was never just about Black Americans, that was about Americans. And it took me a time to actually overthink what I've been hearing my whole life because it's simply not true. Do you have your own culture? Do I say, or would I say you are the blueprint? Absolutely not. I would never agree to that. But will I say you have a big impact? Absolutely. Absolutely, and I'm freaking proud of y'all for doing that. So yes, we should work on that, and we should definitely give Black Americans their roses because they be working hard. Shit, yeah.
So who are you to even open your mouth and try to tell us who we are?
Honestly, especially in this time, no one can tell you who you are. If you want to be a tree, be a tree. If you want to be a cat, be a cat. And if you don't want to be African, don't be African. And this might sound sarcastic, but I don't mean it in that way. Like, seriously, if you don't want to be African, that's it. And I think Africans, or we in general, got to stop telling them who to be. If they want to not be African, that's fine. I'm totally fine with us being friends. I don't need to be your blood, and I don't need us to have the same roots for us to get along. Can we just stop fighting? Can we just do that?
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. The intro you just watched now actually is an intro that I want you guys to watch. Then after you watch it, then I want us to watch Ivan Satima. Is an archaeologist and an historian from America, and of course he wrote the book They Came Before Columbus. They were here before Columbus, or they came before Columbus, excuse me. And he discovered some things about Africans and the exploit that our Africans made, the things that they did, which has been hidden, which has been erased, so that the world will not know exactly what Africans represent, and especially Africans won't discover who they truly are, what exploit they made. And this is the sole reason why that was done, just to make it look like Africa is a poor place, they can't do anything. But greatest discovery, greatest scientific discovery that were done, greatest exploit that were done in the world were done by Africans. And that was what they all came for. But let me not say more than this. Let's go watch other clips I've put together for you so that we can begin a conversation. And every conversation that, Black Americans, they came from Africa, they did not come from Africa, they were the indigenous Black America, all of those things were actually addressed by Ivan. And this is an educational content. This is to enlighten everybody, not to cast any aspersion. So you guys watch to the end, and I'll be right back to begin a conversation. Don't go nowhere. Credit belongs to the original creator of every content I'm sharing here.
Ask any youngster, or any adult for that matter, these things.
Do you know how many documents have been destroyed in the world? The Library of Alexandria where the Africans had built a library. Some people calculated it $1 million. Let me be conservative, $500,000. And these are not the libraries you can duplicate. You could blow up any library here. You could duplicate it somewhere else in the world. There are very few manuscripts that are standing by themselves. This was a time when a manuscript represented centuries of learning, where there were few duplicates or no duplicates at all destroyed. And yet the fragments exist, so significant that we have 10 major medical texts in African languages. The first medical texts in the world are in African language. The first mathematical papyri which you saw this morning, that's African. Those are the first. Even today, with all the destruction, we could still go back to the African documents and show them on a screen. The Ebers Papyrus, the Edwin Smith Papyrus, the Smith Papyrus, which is 1500 BC. They have chapters on helminthiasis, ophthalmology, gynecology, pregnancy diagnosis, circulation of the blood, the pulse, diagnostic percussion, all that, chapters, intestinal disease and all that 1500 years before Christ. Africans.
Because the Arabs are not Egyptian. Don't make any mistake about that. It's just like we're in this room here. This is America. It would be hard to find a Native American in this room. The world has changed dramatically. There have been half a dozen invasions of Egypt, the Persians, the Greeks, the Syrians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Arabs. That is not Egypt. Egypt is no longer Egyptian. They have not a damn thing to do with the building of the pyramids. We now have hard proof, very hard proof, that Egypt was African when the pyramids were built. There is no question about it. This is not guesswork. This is not theory. We found the skeletons in the ancient graves. We found sculptures, which you'll never see when you go to Egypt. They don't put those things on display. But now we have the hard proof. And I'll deal with that later when we come to deal with the Egyptian section of this lecture. But I appeared before the Congressional Committee and I presented 12 witnesses, all European. Because they're going to say I'm Afrocentric if I show them this African said this. No, no, no. I'm going to take the very people that you think you will listen to. Columbus is the first person. I said, that's how I began. I'm not the first person to suggest there were Africans in America before Columbus. Christopher Columbus is the first person to say that. He actually says in the Journal of the Second Voyage that when he was in Haiti, Native Americans came to them and told them that black-skinned people had come from the south and southeast trading in gold-tipped metal spears. Columbus may or may not have believed, but he actually collected samples of these spears. They were sent back to Spain. They were meticulously, microscopically examined in Spain. And they were found to be identical, not just similar, identical with spears being forged in African Guinea. 32 parts, 18 were of gold, 6 of silver, and 8 of copper. Not only were they identical metallurgically, the words the Africans were using for these spears were the words the Americans were using. African word for gold, Ghana. That's why it's called Ghana. Gold Empire, the Golden Empire.
Do you know that some of the scientific research that you have today, theories about Pythagoras theory, all of those theories that we read when we were doing maths in school and science courses and all that, were actually discovered and founded by Africans. Yes, I know you'd be surprised. CS, when the first CS was done in Africa by an African, talk of irrigational system, talk of exploit. They were actually done in Africa, and it was well documented, written. Back then, things that we call research now today that you can duplicate all over the world in Africa is always written in the book, and there are no backups to it, because we were back then. the library is formed and is written in archives, things that can't really be destroyed except you go and you blow them off and all that. And that's exactly what European did. When it came to Africa, some of those things were stolen, and traces of, for example, in Tanzania, still was there, and they were 1500. They've discovered still way back before Americans, before Europeans come. They are not even here of still. When they're still trying to probably use iron, they discovered still in Africa. But right now, all of those things has been destroyed. But research has made it possible for all of those things, traces of them have been discovered gradually. And this shows that Africa has been in existence. Africa has been existing for a long while. If you read the scripture, you see that most of those guys that were being talked about, they're actually black people that were, when they moved away from Israel and all that, they were in Africa. We have the black Africans, and we have the Africa, and we have the Hebrew that came from Israel that were also in West Africa. And some are also saying, oh, the real Hebrew were actually in Africa, that it didn't migrate from anywhere. They went there, but they came back to their source. A lot of insinuation has been said, but that's not what I want to discuss today. What I want to discuss is the fact that Africa has been in existence, and they've been doing a lot of great exploit. And of course, Africans, according to Ivan Shetima, he said Africans are the ones that moved to Europe, moved to Africa, moved everywhere. And that it can't be wrong to say that black Americans of today are from Africa, because Africans have been in existence. They've discovered America before Columbus. You see? So, and some people, I also believe in the, I believe in foundational black Americans that said they've been existing before African trade. And I also believe that because Africans were actually everywhere on the surface of the earth, and they are doing very well. They are doing, and of course, some of them, and another thing is this, let me just lay this. Some of the people that were in those parts of the world, some of them are not actually Africa by origin. Some of them are black people that were from other parts of the earth. For example, when Israelites were scattered, some of them came to Africa, some of them moved to Spain, Portugal, and all that. So and of course, they are the ones, those people that were there. And this is what foundational black Americans are always saying, that they are the real Hebrew, because they migrate straight to that place and they were there. But what Ivan is saying, and I want to corroborate, is the fact that they have been black Americans. Oh, let me know. They have been black people in America before the European came, before Columbus came and said they discovered. No, blacks were the one that discovered America. They discovered Europe. They discovered all those places because they were living there. What about Israel, Aboriginal? They are also blacks there. Spain, Portugal, England. King James is a black person. The King James that wrote the Bible, that translated the Bible from Greek and Hebrew to English, is a black person. So these are facts, these are truth that has been. But guys, let me know what your take is. Everyone's view is correct, is valid. So I want to hear what you think about this. Is Ivan correct? Is that lady too? That she said, that some of the products that you have in America is because Africa also traded with when they traded with America. So cocoa, those products that you saw, that because Africans were trading with America before Columbus now came and said he discovered America, So these are the discoveries. But hey, everyone is entitled to the opinion. Let me know what's your opinion. What is your opinion? Let the conversation begin, guys. Let's talk about it. I mean, the reason why I'm doing this is for enlightenment purpose, to educate everyone, but everybody is entitled to the opinion. And this is just, for fun, for enlightenment, for education, right? So I want your responses and your chat and your views. Thank you, guys. Until I come your way again, remain in peace, remain in love, and avoid trouble, okay? Bye for now.